Do you set out when you've got a new client or an existing client, and do you think, yeah, we can win an award for this campaign? Have you ever?
It sounds actually ridiculous. We almost write the award entry before we've started the campaign.
Yeah.
So right from day one, we know what's going to be a winner. And once we've identified what we think is going to be a winner, we will give it added attention. Mekki and I talk about this quite a lot, but we'll add an extra flourish. And even if that flourish we know, I shouldn't really say this, but even if that flourish we know won't necessarily affect the outcome at the end, but we know it will catch the judge's attention because it will provide a bit of humour, or it will just be a little something that they go, oh, that's, you know, sweet little extra touch there, but that is all pre-planned. I think the agencies that consistently win awards take it incredibly seriously. I mean, you've said that, you know, yourself, and, you know, my team don't write the award entries, I write the award entries because I know they're that important. But yeah, you almost pre-plan them.
So do you guys think that there's too many comms awards out there?
No.
No? Happy? You don't think it devalues the industry or anything like that?
I think it's really motivating for people who work on those campaigns to see the work recognised. You know, sometimes PR can be slightly thankless. You know, client is paying you and you're being nice to everybody else, and so to achieve recognition, I mean, that's one of the major reasons that we enter so many awards, is to show the people that what they've worked on, you know, is worthy of winning an award. And I think the point on do you create awards to make them award-winning, in my mind, it all comes down to have you achieved the business objective. And we always set out to achieve the business objective, else we wouldn't have a long history of clients renewing business with us. So it's all kind of tied into the same thing.
I have a slightly different view. I mean, I agree there's not too much recognition, and there probably could never be too much recognition for all the reasons you just said. I do feel like there are too many competitions now, and I think that it's difficult to choose which ones you're going to put your best work into, and I think it runs the risk of diminishing the winners of all. So I would personally would like to see a consolidation of competitions, but I also know that they're money-making entities, and they serve their own purposes. It's a free market.
I totally agree. And there's one set of awards that we've entered this year that I'm not going to name who they are, but I don't actually place a lot of credence and value in them. But last year there was a roundup of all the awards in the UK, and you know, the top of the league tables for everyone, and we came second. And the only reason we came second and not first was because we hadn't entered those awards. So it's ridiculous, but that was my motivation, because for me, that's my new business driver, is saying, actually, we do make a difference to our client's business, because you don't win an award if you don't do that. But, so the only reason I've done it is literally because they're recognised as part of this thing.
So this year, top of that table?
Or we've failed.
Okay.
Not that I'm hard on myself.
We've had lots of questions in about doing something on a shoestring budget, and I think we've probably talked about that, haven't we? You don't have to be big. You don't have to be a big agency.
No. I mean, we won a Best Global PR campaign at the CIPR Awards in 2010 for an idea that we had no budget for, and £10,000 worth of fee for a 3-month campaign. And it was for beautifulpeople.com. We just launched them and they'd gone global, and we'd had so much coverage, because if it's a first to market and controversial, then you're going to get the coverage. You know, you're a fool if you can't. So we had all of it. We could have sat on our laurels, but we launched them globally in October. And I thought to myself, as I was driving through Winter Wonderland, actually, in a taxi, thinking, you know what, all those beautiful people that have joined the website, they've got Christmas now, and their biggest markets are, you know, Europe, Russia, I mean, the big Christmas celebration areas. What happens if they let themselves go over Christmas, like I know I'm going to? And so I phoned the MD and said, look, you know, this beneficial controversy works really well for you. If your members start uploading unattractive photographs because they've let themselves go over Christmas, what should we do? Should we throw them out? And he went, well, why don't you put them back into ratings so they can, you know, they have to get voted back on again. Brilliant. So 5,000 got pulled into a rating in the first week of January, and well, actually, a bit more than that, but 5,000 basically got thrown off. And we released this, and it went viral. I mean, it went viral.
It's festive fatties, you
festive
called it.
fatties, yeah. I mean, it's really horrible. But you know, I'd already signed up beautifulpeople.com for a year's contract, and I had to make something work. So yeah, I mean, it generated more global coverage than the launch, and the MD was defending their Lucas principles on every TV show, you know, CNN, The View. I mean, it was really incredible, and we won the Best Global Campaign for it, because it was just so simple. It was, basically, we had a press release, a couple of case studies, and you know, and the MD was able to get on the sofa of everyone that wanted to speak to him, put him in a studio, did satellite interviews. So yeah, I think, you know,
clearly people don't have to. I think it's an excuse sometimes that people use. Oh, but we don't have a big budget. But
yeah,
clearly, you know, and you would have seen probably some of the entries.
Oh, most of the winners weren't from well, I shouldn't say most, but small agencies were very well represented. So it's all in the quality of the entry, and I think you saw winners from all types of agencies.
We've won campaigns for pro bono ideas.
Yes,
we've won quite a few.
Yeah.
And we did one. God,
Simon Cowell?
I can't reverse right. No, I can't remember. God. Anyway, but one of them a few years ago, the campaign I'm most proud of that Unity's ever done, because I know it categorically saved lives, was for a youth suicide campaign. And we created this concept called Wasted Youth, and we did the first kind of rock gig in a prison. I spent a week in Pentonville Prison, which is a male maximum security prison. I'm the only person that drives past it and goes, "Aw, Pentonville." It's very strange, but we put a couple of bands in there, but calls to suicide helplines went up by 95%, so that's why I'm always proud of it. It's like we made a difference. But with that, not only was there no money for us, there was no money, and we actually kind of broke all the classic PR rules, and we actually sold broadcast footage to the broadcasters. We were literally like, if you want to see what's going on in here, you're going to have to pay us, because I've got to pay for that amp somehow. It was just extraordinary. We broke all the rules with it, but it worked, so it just covered it. It just needed to cover its cost. But yeah, it's just about a smart idea, and in that case it was kind of the Johnny Cash spirit of like prison gigs and controversy because of who we put in there.
I think that's a trend. I saw it at Cannes and other competitions I've helped to judge. Solving a bigger social problem with your campaign generally puts you on the right side of the judge's minds. I know sometimes you solve a business problem in a classic way, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you do, but if that's going to be the basis of your entry, you better have a pretty clearly stated business need and solution, which you did. But I do like these. I think judges like campaigns that appeal to some bigger social need.
Yeah, and if you hook in your client into that, so we did something for the Flower Advisory Bureau, the Federation of Bakers, not a big client of ours, but they don't spend a lot, but we hooked, they're obviously all about bread and eating bread, and we hooked into the kind of whole fashion world, and models are not eating breakfast, and we launched a fashion Oda toast at National Fashion Week that smelled like buttery toast, that kind of went absolutely everywhere. But the bigger picture of that was about eating breakfast and young women actually, you know, being fortified for the day ahead, and you know, a piece of toast is a great way to do that.
Shall we see if the guys have any questions for us? Does anyone have anything they want to ask any of the panel? Yeah, we've got some microphones. If you can let us know your name and where you're from before you ask a question, that would be lovely.
Leah from Ketchum.
Oh,
Hi.
no.
Yeah, my question as well for David, actually, on the judging process at Cannes. You mentioned before that winning campaigns have to have a social media element, but how do you reconcile that with the actual client brief? So, for example, if the brief specifically says no social media, and if you fulfilled the brief to the best of the client's wishes, is there room for that sort of thing at Cannes, or is it instantly dismissed as not ticking every creative box?
Yeah, well, when I said that you were more likely to win if you had a social element to it, it wasn't a specific criteria of judging. When I looked back and saw those that won, by and large, they had a social element to it. The bigger question, I think, is sometimes clients put us in boxes and say, you know, well, the social agency or the digital agency will handle that, you just handle this part of it. Those are probably not going to be the assignments that are most likely to win awards. Maybe we need to challenge the client, maybe we need to build in a social element to our response, but if work contained that narrowly from the beginning, that's probably not the work that you identify from the beginning as a potential award winner.
Thank you very much for that. Does anyone else have any questions for?
Actually, hi, next door. Hi, I'm Bethany from Freud's. One of the battles that we face quite often is just justifying the ROI. So I think it's really interesting to hear about working with Metrica and kind of challenging opinions before and after campaigns. But our clients quite often want PR value. which I know is, obviously an outdated method of measuring the success of a campaign. But I just wondered, just as kind of a way to kind of go back to clients as well, does that have any legs when it comes to kind of judging a campaign at all? Just for my own sort of.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I stood on stage at Cannes and said that we were trying to, with that moment, kill advertising value equivalency as a legitimate measure. And it drove everybody in the room crazy when the main result of the campaign is, and we secured 200,000 euros worth of free media. It just drove us nuts. Now some of them still made it through because we actually were able to pull other results out of it that were meaningful. But it is a meaningless metric. I know some clients still like to use it, but I think each of the campaigns you described had, I think, more meaningful results. How you attach value to it is probably subjective, but they were clearly defined results against goals that you set in advance.
CIPR Awards deadline is the 25th of January. I know these things off the top of my head. You actually get a 0 score if you mention it. So not only do they ignore it, you will be penalised for doing it because it is so outdated. And we have some clients who are like that as well, and you just have to understand that if that's what they need to justify something, you give it to them. But the intention is always to try and educate them. The whole point of, like, we all talked about the fact that often we have kind of zero tactic or tactic neutral briefs, so we're up against all sorts of different agencies. Unless we all talk about the difference we actually make to the bottom line or changing opinion or something like that, unless we start talking in those terms constantly, we'll be left behind, and people who can prove what they do will be the winners.
That's a great question. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else got a question to the guys? There's a microphone on its way.
Cheers. Luke from Topline. Everything I've heard this morning has kind of felt quite consumery. Is there space for B2B stuff at Cannes? And is that the kind of stuff, do you see stuff like that?
There are several categories. There's a best corporate reputation, there's best CSR, and there are a couple of other categories that lend themselves to corporate or institutional work. I would say by and large, and the winners were good, but those categories were underrepresented. And I think that if you've got good work that's designed along the same sort of wireframes that you've heard here, clear, objective, a creative strategy to deliver and measurable results, you'll have a lot of success. And I tell my agencies, and I tell anybody who bothers to listen, that if you've got a corporate campaign, I would send it to Cannes, because I think it's been underrepresented and it's begging out for some winning work.
I do actually have a second question as well, just because I'm greedy like that. In terms of talking about KPIs and what you're actually judging campaign success on, is that something that you've seen evolve? I mean, anybody talking about AVEs there's not much point in listening to them. I think most people realise that. But in terms of the kind of KPIs, I mean, anything that affects the bottom line, that's great. But kind of raising awareness of something is obviously also great, but if it's not directly affecting sales, then maybe it's not judged as a successful campaign. Have you seen an evolution of KPIs, essentially, at awards?
Well, I think Emily's campaign, yours was all about behaviour change, wasn't it, or driving behaviour?
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole AMEC kind of outcomes, outtakes, outputs, and I know that everybody talks about it, but actually, if you get back to the nub of that, I mean, that's where you should start with your ultimate outcome objective. But then, things like looking at your key messages and differentiating them in line with the kind of marketing funnel is a sort of a really easy way of showing how your key messages may have had impact on swaying somebody from awareness the way through to consideration. So in my mind, it's being as detailed as possible, briefly detailed, but making it all, oh God, it's a terrible expression, ladder up to what the ultimate objective was, because ultimately you're trying to raise the publicity, get the likes, get the coverage, because it's going to make somebody do something. So it's kind of like following the breadcrumbs, really. I mean, we use cost per thousand a lot, just as a benchmarking, and that's more for kind of internal purposes to make sure that, we're putting budget in the right place. But for me, I think benchmarking is something that if you're able to get access to data, that's really helpful, and show where you didn't reach or what somebody else did, or where you rated compared to other people. And that's also a really effective way of helping, I think, judges understand why the campaign was so successful.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for that. Does anyone else like to ask a question? There's another hand here, Alex. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily from Anthony Nolan, the blood cancer charity. I just wondered if you thought in-house teams might face different challenges to agencies when applying for awards, and what you thought those might be.
I don't have a short answer for that. I guess you must have different resourcing issues. I think that agencies have gone through the mechanics perhaps more frequently and have more experience with that. And maybe, we've all got our own recipes. You heard us trying to share some of our best tips, but I do think agencies have an accumulated wisdom when it comes to identifying work early, collecting the type of material throughout a program. I mean, some of the best campaigns, some of the winning campaigns are those that thought to collect video throughout the production of the process. It made the actual final video much easier to produce. So I do think their agencies might have an experience advantage. I don't think they have any advantage in terms of creativity or quality of thinking or closeness to the material. So you might have some advantages there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great question. Anyone else? Any questions? I mean, just on that note as well, how involved do your clients get in your entries? You run it by them?
I usually get a quote from them,
just run it by them.
But I don't always use it. We had an amazing testimonial from the management company for sea containers, but we just used the statistic inquiries up by 200%. Because you can get a really gushing quote and then put it into your entry and then eat up loads of your word count where, you could have inserted vital bits of the challenges that you face, the little bits of drama. So it's getting that balance right between the detail and the brevity. It's really difficult.
Our clients are always involved in ours. I show all of my award entries to my clients and get them approved, essentially.
We do as well, and sometimes it's quite tricky. I had a situation recently where a client rewrote our entry, and I had to go back and say, look, just trust me on this one, and know how to do this. And actually that's another thing, when you take awards as seriously as I do. I've been a judge at all the major awards, intentionally to kind of pick up on to blatantly pick up on the secrets of what makes me stand out. That's exactly what Mickey just said. A client quote means nothing in award entry in my perspective, because of course the client's going to think the campaign's great. If it is somebody else who's not related to the quote commenting on it, that then has some power. But if a client's going, this was a really clever, intelligent campaign, it's a bit like, yeah, of course it is.
Patting themselves on the back,
Exactly.
Did someone, yes.
Hi,
final
I'm
question.
Kath from Iris. I just had a question about resource and cost for awards, because obviously all of you have talked about how much they cost, how much time they take, and I'm just, you guys seem to do, some of you enter quite a lot of awards. How do you manage that resource and that cost, and any sort of insights into who writes them and how that works best?
You've got to decide what it means to you. When we launched Unity, as I said, it was like, another secret of Unity is Jerry and I, when we set it up, we were board directors of an agency. We did corporate and B2B PR. We'd never done consumer. And then we crazily set up a consumer agency. So we had nothing, no reputation as an agency or as individuals. So we knew we had to get people to really believe that we could do good work for them. So awards were a fundamental part of our strategy. And we probably spend more on awards than anyone else here, particularly per head of people you've got in the agency. But that is because we know we do good work, and we know we'll get through, and if not win them all, we'll get shortlisted for a lot of them. So actually the ROI of us entering awards is very high. And I know that through all the new business leads we're working on at the moment. And the first question we ask is, why have you come to us? And they're like, because your name appears time and time again in awards. So you have to decide whether or not it's important to you. And sometimes the reason to enter an award is simply because it will matter a lot to the client. And winning it for that client will mean a lot for them and will allow them to show off internally. So you just need to work out why you're doing it, and then work out whether it's a worthy expense or not based on that.
But also, once you've entered one campaign once, although you have to rewrite it according to, which categories you're going to put it into, I always think there's a run-up. So if I start earlier in the year, I've written it once, and then the next time I write it, it gets better. And then it gets better, and it gets better, and it gets better. So actually, by the time you come to the PR Week Awards, you've had 5 or 6 goes at it. If it hasn't been shortlisted, throw it in the bin, write it again, or don't enter it again. But usually it's because of the way that it's been written. So, and in terms of who writes them, you know, board directors have responsibility. We have peer reviews, we have a whole process that they go through, but you know, account directors will get involved in helping with the kind of padding out of the detail. Everybody's done, surely you've done a review of the work anyway for a client, and in doing that review you're going to have pulled it all together. If you get your client involved quite early on and ask them to share all the intelligence that they've got, because we've sometimes got to award industry time and we realise there's a whole bunch of metrics that we didn't know about that actually support what we're doing. So I don't think it should be too time intensive.
But one thing about CAN actually as well is the entry process is so different to all the others, and that's what I struggled with my one-month-old baby, is because I couldn't just rehash it. Required quite a lot of reworking. So that's why, you know, this year it's just about having a much, you know, longer run up to something like that and thinking it through.
Well, I think two other reasons to think about awards. I know they're expensive and they're time consuming. I agree with you. You've got to decide if is it right for your business, and then if it is right for your business, which competitions and how much effort to put into it. But I think for clients it can be important. For us, it's really for our people, and we want to make sure that our people have a chance to do the best work of their lives. And one way to validate that is through external competition. So it's one thing for us to clap for each other, but it's another thing to be given recognition from your peers and your competitors. And maybe a harder business reason is, I think generally the kind of work that wins awards, and you may not agree with everything that gets every award, but it's generally pretty good work. And you learn from that work, and you'll actually produce better work in the future that maybe never gets entered into a competition, but you'll learn, you know why you won these awards now, and that's going to inform the next way you respond to a client brief. So I think it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And my pitch, if I can go back to the thing we talked about in the beginning, you know, work is subjective, it's hard to judge, every competition is differently, and I think it's not always the only, it shouldn't be the only metric of our success. So I would urge you to take a look at the Young PR Lions competition. I don't know if the UK this year will have a national competition. I still need to try to help them sort that out. But take a look at it, because I think the other way you show off a little bit is on the spot, and with your you know, with a teammate from your agency. This should be a good way for us to put UK PR on the map and show the potential of the next generation, or the current generation of talent.
That is a lovely point to finish on. So sadly, our time is up. But you guys are hanging around for a bit, aren't you? So if people do want to grab you for a quick word on the side.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, hopefully you're all feeling really inspired and motivated, and you've picked up some really good tips today. Let's say a very big thank you to our lovely speakers for joining us today. Thank you so much, guys. Amazing. Thank you. It's very cool.